Welcome to Proverbs 31 Creatives. My name is Brianna Coleman. I'm so excited for this new chapter in my walk with the Lord. My goal with this podcast is to encourage other women to grow their creativity, entrepreneurship, finances, life, health, and most importantly, grow closer to Jesus. I'll be having conversations with guests with anointed women in faith and learning right along with you. Are you ready to start your journey to become the creative Proverbs 31 woman you've always wanted to be? All right, let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Proverbs 31 Creatives. I'm your host, Brianna Coleman. Today, it is going to be such a great conversation. I have an amazing guest with me today, Miss Hayley Rawnsley. She is an artist, a poet, and most importantly, she loves Jesus. She is helping creatives find their creative identity, helping them to stop striving and create more with the Lord, which that's what we all want to do. So I'm so excited for this conversation. Hayley, welcome to Proverbs 31 Creatives.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad that we got to connect, and I think it may have been Instagram threads that connected us. I'm not even really sure. I know we have a lot of mutual connections, and so I'm very glad that our circles crossed over each other. So tell me a little bit about yourself, go into all the details, and we'll go from there.
Totally, yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm an artist and a writer. I'm also a graphic designer. So I just have a lot of creative passions, and God has been able to bring those together through different creative avenues like he does. And so my main sort of passion right now is Deserts Blooming, which is my personal brand that has been inspired by just my experience with creating with God through wilderness seasons and through just learning what it looks like to be an artist for his glory. And so I have shared for the past few years on Instagram and starting now on Substack, just my art and my passion for helping creatives just connect with their creative identity and purpose with Jesus. And so, yeah, it's just been an amazing journey, kind of be able to share my journey with other people and walk alongside them, and now being able to see how God's just kind of starting to allow me to share more of that with people and really kind of getting clarity on where he's leading me with that.
That's so awesome. And I know, so you've been a Christian your whole life. Tell us a little bit about your walk with the Lord.
Yeah, so I did grow up in a Christian household. I went to a Christian school for kindergarten through eighth grade, and yeah, my faith has been an important part of my life for
Mhm.
many years, and I'm really grateful for that. And it's also changed and shifted a lot as we grow.
Yeah.
As a kid, I felt like my relationship with God was a little distant, and like I believed that He loved me, but it wasn't personal. And then
Mhm.
in college, when I really started to become my own person as an adult, I started to explore my faith more and really make those decisions for myself, what I believed. And so since then, God has definitely taken me on a journey deeper into understanding what relationship looks like with him and how we do that, as an
Right.
individual on an intimate level, not always
Mhm.
just going to church and going through the motions of things, but what actually looks like to encounter his spirit and to know
Yeah.
his presence and to pray. And so it's just been a journey, and I think that a lot
Yeah.
of that is what I draw upon in my creativity, because I'm just passionate about that experience for myself and wanting to actually share that and help others people encounter that as well for themselves.
Yeah, there's something so beautiful about, especially when you were able to witness somebody going from religion to intimate relationship with the Lord, and it is just such a night and day difference on, I feel like everyone's just like your world, just everything changes. Like it just kind of starts of just say one decision, and then that trickles into the next, and then next thing you know, you don't even recognize yourself because just being so intimately known with the Father. And I love that journey and that process of, just being more open and stuff with him. What did that look like for you when going from religion to relationship?
Yeah, I love how you put that religion to relationship, because it definitely felt like that. So yeah, it's been a multi-year journey of that, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to share many aspects of that however you want to, but
Yeah.
we'll start with just kind of there was that shift, I feel like, from I don't like to use this deconstruction as in like I was undoing all my faith, but it was this kind
Mhm.
of unpacking, it felt
Yeah,
like. That definitely kind of started in the end. I graduated college in 2020, And I feel like that was a catalyst in some
Yeah.
ways of like undoing a lot of things, I think for a
Yeah.
lot of people, you know? But
100%.
for me, like I kind of had this sense of like I'm either gonna go through this with God or I'm gonna get really angry and walk away. And I had this season
Ooh.
I was like, I know I need to like actually, keep going through because I my graduation was ruined. Like there was so much
Wow.
unknown, like there was so much. And that I didn't know at the time that I was entering into a wilderness season at that point. And so it was I kind of remember that decision in March 2020. And from there, like I kind of just started to explore more of what prayer looks like in a more contemplative sense because I think that there
Yeah.
was just a lot of yeah, growing up in the church feeling like oh, there's just a lot of emotions that I'm going through and a lot of performance and I didn't realize that that was something that really kind of characterized my relationship with God.
Yeah.
And when I was in wilderness and things started to not work, as in like I didn't feel like I was connecting with God, I felt like so many parts of my life just didn't look like, how I'd been told it would look. And
Yeah.
so I feel like those moments just kind of blow the roof off of like what you actually believe and it kind of starts to feel like, do I believe anything? Like it's unraveling, and I think um I was able to process that with God in prayer and like really actually start to be honest with him. And I
Hmm.
think that just changed our dynamics so much
Yeah.
because finally I felt like I was being my true self in front of him. And I think that
Mhm.
for so long I'd been kind of both performing for other people and for God. And I didn't really know it
Wow.
until I was, in this season where like nothing was working. I kind of felt like I was at the end of myself.
Mhm.
And with that, I felt like God allowed me to like have then space to discover like who he really is, who I really am. And it was really hard and painful and like I said, messy.
Yeah.
But through that, there's just something crazy that started to happen where I felt more like myself. And that's kind of where my art and creativity also shifted as well. So yeah, there's so much to go into with that, and I'm curious to hear what your questions are from there. But that's
Yeah. Oh my
a little
gosh.
bit of the beginning of where
Yeah.
it really shifted, like you're saying, from religion to relationship to intimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for somebody that maybe is, and this isn't even in my notes, so I know this is from the Lord, for somebody that is maybe in a wilderness season, maybe they don't even realize that's what they're going through right now. Maybe, they're trying to find their footing. How did you know that you were in a wilderness season? What did your life look like at that point? Like, what is a
Yeah.
wilderness season?
Yeah, definitely. Wilderness can look like a lot of different things. And it's funny, I just had this sense and this imagery of it before I really knew what it was.
Wow.
Because I think you look at like the big sort of biblical illustrations of
Mhm.
wilderness are like set in a wilderness where people, the Israelites are leaving Exodus, or like
Yeah.
Jesus goes into the wilderness and tempted by the devil. Like it's
Mhm.
very like the atmosphere of it is set in those physical places, but for
Yeah.
us now, like not every time, I don't know, maybe God's creative and will set you into an actual wilderness, but I feel like it's normally metaphorical. And
Yeah.
so with that, it often comes with just a lot of unknowns, be triggered by just a life event like me, like the pandemic or
Hmm.
loss or just grief, like just different things that like are totally not what we expected out of our
Yeah.
lives. And so there's that component. There's also just this feeling of distance from God, whether it comes in kind of just this apathy or spiritual dryness, or just feeling like you don't hear from Him like you used to,
Mhm.
and just things aren't working, like you've hit a wall almost. And I think that
Yeah.
something that is a big theme as I've like learned more about wilderness as well. And so yeah, once I just started to describe myself and my life, like I'm like, this feels like wilderness, this feels like a desert. I started to explore more like in the Bible what that looks like and other resources, and so it started to make more sense.
Yes.
I think recognizing that feeling of like just things aren't working and like the things that you even feel like you've been working really hard to grow in your life, like they're withering or they're just not happening like you expected.
Yeah.
I that's often a big sign that you're in wilderness.
100%. I completely agree. And mine was more, I guess, like wilderness and refiner season. I guess they kind of go like hand in hand. I feel like once you're through the wilderness, then the Lord takes you through refiner because
Mhm.
then it kind of just like, I don't know if the heat of the desert just kind of like ramps up and then he refines you and gets rid
Yeah.
of all the impurities. And then what's so wild, and I love how the Lord works through women specifically because, and I say that yes, we need godly men, we need leadership, all the things, but specifically, I believe that the Lord uses women prophetically. In because I have had a good friend of mine, she went through what is like her garden season. And so the Lord used a garden to minister to her, and now he's using a desert to minister to you. And I just think it is so wild, like to see how just the imagery that he gives us of like our different seasons. And so I just think this is so, I love it so much.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, I think the imagery of it all really
Yes.
helps us to understand. Like I think God speaks through nature so much throughout the Bible and just through our
Yeah.
lives, you know, like I
Yep.
think it really helps you to name the season and kind of embrace the environment, even though it's often uncomfortable in like those
Yeah.
situations, you know.
Yeah, I know I have had some prophetic encounters at the beach by the ocean and just being
Mhm.
in nature in that way and just really just in his environment and his creation. And so let's backtrack a little bit. You said that when you were starting to go through that wilderness season that your art shifted. Can we go into that? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so up until kind of graduating, like my creativity had been more focused towards design. And
Okay.
I knew I wanted to go into that as a career, and it was definitely still there, but I was really missing kind of being a kid and just playing with paints and like there's just something tangible that I always loved about different forms of creativity that I explored as a kid.
Yeah.
And so I wanted something that could kind of help me be off screen. And
Okay.
I felt like I also just was going through a lot emotionally that I just needed an outlet that's just different than creating for business or for work, you know? And
Right.
so that's kind of when I really started to return and actually teach myself how to paint because I felt like I always dabbled with it, but I didn't really like set any intention. So I
Right.
started watercolor and like learned gouache, which is similar to watercolor if anyone doesn't know. I didn't know either.
Yeah.
It has a little bit more opacity to it, so you can layer it easily. And so, yeah, art turned from just being this like fun thing to becoming this thing that just like is so healing that I think a lot of people discover when they pick up some sort of creative hobby. And I also discovered that God wanted to speak and communicate and like connect with me through my art
Yeah.
in ways that I just hadn't understood before. And I think a lot of that also had to do with just the inner work that I was doing of discovering like I am a creative person and like God
Yep.
created me to create and like God is creative. Those pieces started to come together in ways that I just like
Mhm.
hadn't put together before, you know, and I think that also has to do with like I was saying, just really having a relationship and understanding like oh, like who God made me to be was intentional and it's a good thing. And like just kind of
Yeah.
undoing a lot of shame or just pressures that had been put on me
Yeah.
growing up or, you know, in life.
100%. What has he began to show you through painting? I know you said that he began to speak to you. What was it that he began to show you when you started that painting journey?
Yeah, so I think that it's a twofold. I think one was kind of about my identity as a creative, and then
Mhm.
also just the ways that he wants to communicate with all of us through
Yeah.
creativity, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
part
absolutely.
of it was just this healing process of realizing, like, oh, like when I was really young, like this has always been in me, this desire to create, and
Hmm.
realizing like that comes from God because we reflect his image.
Yeah,
And so really understanding what that looks like to be a creative. I believe everyone has an element of creativity in them, even if it's not artistic.
100%. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was, I think, just by making space to start creating more often, even
Yeah.
just daily, I would just be like, you know, painting a little thing. It was that space to just like acknowledge and explore that creative
Hmm.
identity that I think
Hmm.
um, I just hadn't always had space to honor, I guess is
Yeah.
that the right word for it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so with that, I think that it just built this confidence in me
Mm.
that I was really looking for all this time and just kind of helping me experience God's just love for me as a person that he has given these creative abilities. Yeah, really just speaking identity into me. And it's just like one
100%.
little because obviously there's so many other ways that he does that and like affirms our identity, but I think that it was a really important thing for me to start
Hmm.
make
Yeah.
that space for. And then also just I think that he started as I was like painting these wilderness scenes and painting kind of just the feelings that I was experiencing, I just realized how much that can be used to share with other people. And I think that
Mhm.
I'd had that longing to express those feelings, but I just hadn't found the medium for them. And
Yeah.
so as I learned to paint and started to share them on Instagram and just found how God speaks through art, it just gave me this sense of purpose that I hadn't experienced before. Because even growing up in the church, it felt like my creative gifts, if I wasn't like a like I wasn't on the worship team, or like it felt very narrow of what creativity looked like. And so it just opened up this can of worms of just like, oh, what can I actually do with my
Yeah.
creativity for God's glory and for just building up the church. I think that I
Yeah.
just hadn't really put two and two together, and I'm still exploring what that looks like, but it just showed me how creative God is in the ways that he uses creativity, if that makes sense.
That's, yeah, no, 100%. And I remember having a very similar conversation with God of, okay, I have these creative talents. What does that look like as far as worshiping Him with that? And Him showing me that how, and I guess me realizing how creative He actually is. I mean, He
Mhm.
created all of us and gives us all of our ideas. And so we serve a very creative God, and it's an honor to be able to co-create with Him. And I love finding other people that share that same heart of co-creating with Him. And so let's dive in. Let's go into your desert project. Share with us what you are doing. I think this is just so cool. So share us all the details about this project.
Yeah, so I've been recently the past few months on Substack doing this project called Daily Desert. And I
Hmm.
had this idea for a while that I wanted to sketch 100 deserts. I didn't really know why that goal was there. I didn't really
Right?
know, but I feel like God placed it in there. I
Yeah.
was waiting on it because I just didn't know what I was going to do with it. I could, of course, just make these pieces and display them, but I
Yeah.
wanted it somehow to be just deeper than that. And I started to explore Substack and started to see how just relational and community oriented it felt. And so it started to just form in me this idea that I was going to share daily sort of devotional reflections of these pieces that I'm creating that are just these oil pastels. Doesn't take me a long time, but it's just this daily creative practice, and then
Yeah.
welcoming God into it, and then sharing kind of whatever I feel like he's sharing through that. And so it's just been such a cool journey. I didn't expect. Yeah, it's really opened my eyes even more. If I'd already understood how much creativity matters to God and like what he
Right.
wants to do with it, but it just opening up new doors of how he could use my gifts and also just other people's creative desires to connect with them and to heal people and to bring renewal just everywhere you go. And so, yeah, it's just been such a cool experience.
That's so amazing. Have you ever, and this thought just dawned in my head, have you ever thought about writing a devotional with these deserts and stuff?
Definitely, yes.
Okay,
Yes, it's in
good.
the
I'm like that
it's
is such a I don't know if that's if you've ever thought about it. If you
yeah,
haven't, I'll confirm it. I
yeah.
just feel like that would be such a great idea for a devotional.
hmm
100%.
Definitely. That was definitely kind of part of where I thought it was headed. And
Okay.
then before I like kind of discovered that Substack could be the like vehicle, and I wanted to kind of test it out and see
Yeah.
how people responded. And yes, that is definitely in my mind. I'm just
Okay.
waiting kind of for more direction of
Okay.
where to take it.
Okay, well, the Lord wanted me to tell you that, so I will confirm any like vision that he's given you,
I
like
love it.
100%. I just see it right now. So,
hmm
I will pray and we'll let you can clip this and use this for promo that when it's ready to
Exactly.
go.
Definitely.
Yes. Yes. And then I absolutely love what you are doing right now with creatives as far as your clarity sessions. What did it look like as far as for you when you were fine-tuning your craft with the Lord? Maybe was there a season that you were maybe going through like as far as like striving, and I know we kind of talked about you more people pleasing with your art, but what did that look like as far as was there any striving, or how did this creative clarity session come about for you to start offering?
Yeah, so a lot of my just healing journey with God has been healing from performance and striving.
Yeah.
And I a lot of times I just didn't know what that felt like. But then
Hmm.
as I like went through therapy and just started to kind of explore God's presence, I'm like, this is anxiety and this is like a pressure that I'm putting on myself
Yeah.
that comes out, especially when I'm creating. And
Hmm.
it does not feel like God's presence. And I
Yeah.
think that I started to notice the difference of just feeling like, I think some people call it like a flow state, and I believe that like the spirit can like work through that too. Like it's
Yeah.
not black and white, you know, but yeah, they're just whenever I like went to create or just thought about even like what I'm doing with Deserts Blooming, I often notice I'm like, oh, like I'm just putting this pressure on myself and I didn't know how to release that.
Yeah.
And it's been through just learning to care for my creative soul and like spend time with God. And like I think it started as I explored more of the contemplative side of the faith.
Okay.
Kind of started to notice that, oh, like spending time in silence and solitude and prayer, like these things really have an effect on my soul. And then as I'm creating, I come with a different energy and a different mindset.
Yeah.
So I've just built this like passion for like helping creatives experience that as well. And
That's
so,
so.
yeah, the creative clarity sessions is something that I started just because I'm a brand designer.
Hmm.
That's what I mainly do for work, and
Yeah.
I love helping people just build brand strategy and really understanding who they are and just experiencing kind of just that clarity around
Mm.
purpose and identity. And so I just know from myself, I've both experienced that through, you know, business side of watching other people experience that, but also like on the artistic side for myself,
Yeah.
realizing that we just need someone who can help guide us, give us an outside perspective. And
Hmm.
a lot of times those self-reflection sort of questions can just be so much more fruitful when we can do it with somebody else. And I've seen that with my design clients and how much more clear our brand projects then can be about, oh, this is exactly what we're building towards, and this is who you are. I think that creatives really need that because there is so much pressure to like look around on Instagram or
Hmm.
anywhere and be like, well, these people are doing that and these people
Yeah.
are doing that, and I need to figure out then what I need to do. And I always was coming from that space of just feeling like comparing and feeling like I've just got to hustle and make it. But the more that I like leaned into God, the more I realized that he doesn't rush and that he like does have a clear idea of who you are and that he wants to reveal that to you. And it's not
100%.
about like trying to find yourself as like kind of returning to that person that he made you to be. And so, yeah, I offer clarity, these creative clarity sessions just to help people if they want to just really kind of build that confidence around their creative identity.
100%. And it's always good. This is what I loved about I had a life coach. I know this is like not in the same realm, but just having somebody else that is not, how do I say this, not too close to your project, but can like see from an outside point of view.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
know that's why I loved my life coach that I had about a year or two ago, when it was basically an outside perspective. It wasn't my family. It wasn't somebody that was close to me, but it was somebody that could speak into me. And I believe that that is something that as a brand partner that you can do for creatives is you are not too close to the project. You can give that brand clarity that and bring the Lord into it, which I think is so awesome. How long have you been doing the brand? What's the word I'm looking for? Not the creative sessions, but more of like the branding piece to it.
Yeah, so I've been doing branding for 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I like I was doing it with the marketing agency, and then I also started my own brand business a
Yeah,
few years ago.
that's
And so
awesome.
yeah, and so I love working with I found that I love working with service providers and mainly
Hmm.
work with therapists and like mental health professionals, but being a creative myself, I just have such a passion and I wanted to create something accessible that's like more of a stepping stone because I
Hmm.
understand how investing in branding isn't always the on the budget or just on the mind of like artists and
Right.
creatives wherever they're coming from, but I know for
Yeah.
myself that like I've had those moments where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and like making decisions when you're in that state is just not good, you know? It's just that
Yeah.
like anxiety and you're throwing spaghetti at the wall. And so
Mhm.
I think that that's kind of my heart for these creative clarity sessions.
That's
Just
so good.
making space for creatives to kind of unpack
Hmm.
everything, and it's some form of therapy, but it's not, you know, like it's kind of this
It can be.
creative, yeah, like, and so, yeah, that's kind of how it's tied into then my like experience with branding.
Yes, I love that. And unfortunately, I can't say too much yet, but I am working on something behind the scenes, and I am actually currently in the thick of what you're talking about right now of I don't know what I'm doing and I'm throwing things at the wall and it can be messy, but I just pray and ask the Lord for grace. I'm like, God, I need you to teach me. I need to know a little bit of coding. I need to know what colors I need to use for this template. I need to know like all these type of things. And so your work is very much needed as far as like branding and being that outside voice of reason. So keep going. That's yes, much needed.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're so welcome. What would you say to anybody right now that's listening that is maybe in a striving time frame, I guess, right now in their business, in their creativity, and they want to create more with the Lord? Maybe they keep hearing that on this podcast of creating with the Lord, but maybe they don't even know what that looks like. What would you say to them?
Yeah. First of all, I know what that feels like, and even though I'm, farther ahead of learning to create with God, like I still am on that journey with you, so I empathize.
Yeah,
And secondly, I think that just becoming aware that you are in that striving state can be so powerful because like the more that
yeah,
you're aware of like, oh, this is where I go and this is like how I kind of start to like, get anxious and start to
mhm,
try to make things happen, like you're able to, when you notice it more, be able to return to a different state. And I think that that awareness is really powerful. And once you're aware, like the only thing we can do is ask God for help. Like
mhm,
I think what if I've learned anything from wilderness is like creating with God is like just dependence and like it looks so different than creating in the world. Like it just looks
yeah,
so different. It's not rushed. It's not making
right.
these brash decisions. It's waiting on God. It's spending time with him and asking for his wisdom
Hmm.
and just feeling peace. And so I think that the best thing to start when you're realizing that you're in that striving mode is just to take a pause and to actually just breathe and to slow down when you can.
Yeah.
And yeah, spend time with God, whatever that looks like for you. For me, it
Hmm.
has been more contemplative side of just making more space to listen to what's going on inside of me and to become more familiar with
Hmm.
how the Holy Spirit speaks and ministers,
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that some of that journey also as you become more aware of like these are kind of the triggers or these are the ways that I'm like striving, it may be an invitation from God to like kind of unravel some things about just maybe masks or false identities that you've had around your
Yeah.
creativity, your identity in general. I know I've had just to have a lot of healing, both through therapy and through God and just the way that He ministers, like to be able to break free from things like anxiety and fear and just those lies of the enemy that we're going to be a failure and like all these different things that I just feel like are kind of just enemies of our creativity. And
Amen.
that's just, it's not a fast process, but I do also think that there is freedom because I've experienced it.
Yeah.
And yeah, just that willingness to real ask the Holy Spirit to just continue to reveal what does that look like for you to like create with God versus create and striving? Like what does it look like to abide versus striving? And everything I think everyone has a little bit of a different process, with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's so good. And I know for me, even when I was in that, I guess, healing identity, trying to figure this whole thing out of creativity with the Lord, I literally would just get my camera and I would go on a walk and I'd have worship music playing and I would just take pictures. And I know that looks different for everybody. Like, I know, like you said, you painted and stuff like that, but just getting alone with the Lord, I think, and just allowing Him. I almost feel like there's like a guard down. Like it's almost like a surrender that you have to go to the Lord and say, I am surrendering this, whatever I had in the past, the other what other ideas I had about myself, whatever ideas I had about my creativity, my identity, God, I lay it down. And that is something that when I walked through that, that's when I began to really hear and again start that journey of co-creating with the Lord. And so I love how it's different, but we both like get to the same same point with our walk with the Lord. So that's so awesome. Yeah. Yes. And we cannot not talk about your poetry. I would love to touch on this. This is something that I wish I could write poetry. I love to write, and poetry is my weak spot. So let's talk about poetry. How did you get into writing poetry, all the things?
Yeah, it came out of nowhere.
Okay, we love that.
I've always loved writing.
Okay.
In school, I never really knew where it was gonna go after that because I didn't want to like study English, but I always loved writing and
Yeah.
reading. And yeah, poetry is something I kind of rediscovered through Instagram, honestly. There's
Wow. Okay.
modern faith-inspired poets that have really, been just kind of opened my eyes. Like the more that I had kind of explored, like, oh, this is something that people do, and this is a
Right.
way that they express their faith and their relationship with God, and just I don't know, there's something that I was drawn to
Yeah.
explore, and like I really didn't know much about what that looked like. I mean, in high school, like you probably touch on poetry a little bit, but I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't really like Shakespeare. It's not exactly my type of poetry that I like.
Yeah.
But I think something about writing it versus reading it was just like
Mhm.
so much more interesting, or like it made sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, it mattered. And so yeah, I just started to write poetry
Mhm.
a few years ago and started to submit some poems places. I have to give credit to The Way Back to Ourselves and Kimberly Finney. She's just been an amazing mentor and just somebody who's really championed creatives in the Christian space for especially writers. And so I think that there's just been some support through Instagram and through just the community that like has really encouraged me to continue pursuing it.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and I feel like poetry just has a special depth to it that allows us to just express things in poetic, metaphoric imagery,
Yeah.
similar to painting. That's just like it, I don't know, exposes different elements of the human experience and then just presents it in a way that is just deeper than just writing it in plain English. I don't know.
Yeah. No, 100%.
So, yeah, it's just been a really cool exploration that I just am kind of exploring and learning and growing in.
That's so awesome. When I think of when I think of poetry, I think of Shakespeare. And I guess I need to not think of that and I need to think of more it's just a way of writing with words that is not like old like Shakespeare, I guess. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think my process is often like it's like a puzzle almost. So like you know what you
Yeah.
but then you have to kind of create different ways of saying it and the structure and there's a lot of just intention to it that I think that
Yeah.
that's just like something that I really appreciate and admire the challenge of it.
Yeah. And you just said that so perfectly. I was thinking, I'm like, what's the word I'm looking for? And then you just said puzzle. I'm like, that's exactly what it is. It's a puzzle.
Yeah,
It's like a Sudoku puzzle. You kind of have to like figure out what works and what doesn't, and then it
exactly.
all just kind of flows. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good. I know you have your poetry book and your workbook. How did you start publishing that? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so my poetry book, I released it just on Amazon
Hmm.
in November.
Okay.
Something that came together quicker than I expected. And
Okay.
again, sometimes God, like, I think sometimes the timeline is very long, and then suddenly it's like, okay, now we're gonna do this, and it comes together really quickly.
Yeah.
I'd been wanting to create a poetry book. I've just always wanted to create a book of sorts. And
Yeah.
so I felt like this is the first experience. Maybe it's not going to be my most like epic book, but
Hmm.
I need to publish, I need to do something.
That's
And so
awesome.
I've been writing for a few years and especially around just like this wilderness season experience that I've had, this healing, this growing, I just felt like there was things that I wanted to finally kind of articulate and
Mm,
say.
that's
And
awesome.
so I started to create over just a few months just this little collection of poems. And some of them I had written in the past, some of them were writing about those experiences from a few years ago. So this fresh perspective that I had.
Hmm.
And I also wanted to incorporate some of my illustration skills. And so I put some pretty line art drawings on certain pages. And it was
Yeah.
cool because I got to combine all of my graphic design skills that I had
Love
learned
that.
and hadn't really gotten to go into the book print world that
Hmm.
much yet, but being able to do it for myself, this project was just really fun to explore those
That's
skills.
so awesome. Yeah.
And so yeah, it just released on Amazon. It was a great experience. I
That's
probably will do
awesome.
it again in the future. It's
Yes.
been cool to see just how people are touched by it. I
Yeah.
didn't expect many people to read it. I haven't done a ton of like marketing with it,
Hmm.
exploring what that looks like, but I also just love the organic kind of nature that whoever it's meant to be shared with, God will bring it to them.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so it's just been a very cool experience that I like want to continue exploring, what
Yeah,
else future with more writing and publishing.
that's amazing. Yeah, I would love to write a book one day. And so the idea of publishing your own book, that's really exciting. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then the workbook. So this I created the Abiding Creative Workbook,
Yes.
and this is a digital product, so it's
Okay.
a digital journal.
Yeah,
But again, was able to combine those design skills. It's just cool to see how God like brings all of our skills together.
absolutely.
And so this was just from my heart of desiring people to creatives, especially to just experience similar sort of spiritual practices and things that I've found helpful. Journey that I've been talking about on this podcast.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's just a collection of little activities and prayer exercises and journal prompts that
Hmm.
have just helped me kind of unpack and discover what it means to be a creative, creating with God.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, it was really fun to create, and I'm just excited for people to be able to experience that and to use those tools as kind of
Hmm.
more of soul care and spiritual practices
Yeah.
that I think are just so important for creatives. Something that I've learned and we've talked about already with like the
Hmm.
striving versus abiding.
Yeah.
Creating with God is like it is communing with him, and if we don't feel connected to him, that can really get in the way of what he maybe wants to create through us. And so
Yeah.
it is kind of our role to show up with kind of that presence that I think
Yeah.
sometimes can get in the way with just busyness of life and stress and
Mhm.
striving. And so these practices are just meant to help us kind of come into that space of attuning with God, that
Yeah.
then we can just come approach our creativity from just this clear space that is peaceful and um,
Yes.
it just is open to what the Holy Spirit wants to do with us in that moment.
That's so beautiful. I love everything that you just said. And it's so needed is, not a reality check, but just like a come back to Jesus kind of, not a complete come back to Jesus, but just like okay, let's do a check-in with ourselves of,
Mhm.
hey, have I been prioritizing the Lord, or has life been crazy and I need to get back to that? And so I know for me, I always do like a check-in with myself, like, okay, have I read my Bible? Have I spent time in prayer? Have I spent time in the secret place? And if any of those are a no, getting back to that, because I can always feel myself, okay, I'm starting to strive, and that's just me being so real, of
Mhm.
just being honest of, that's human, is to try to strive and get to these places in your own human strength. And
Mhm.
what's so important is to have those practices to then get back to where you know your need to be. So that's so beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
it really is a daily thing. Like I think
100%.
every day there's a temptation to like kind of go back into that
Yes.
striving mode. Like it's
Yes.
so I think that there's something about like not in a disciplined religious way, but like being
Right.
disciplined about it, just as you are
Hmm.
disciplined like your craft. I think caring for your
Yep.
soul is a really important thing to be intentional about that like
Hmm.
I think that's just a missing piece, especially for people who want to create with God and really want
Yeah.
to like follow his purposes and be led by his spirit with their
Yeah.
creativity.
That's so good. I love that so much. And that is the perfect way to end. I'm going to just wrap it up right there. That was a perfect ending note. So, in final rapid fire question, I asked every single guest, number one, what is your favorite book in the Bible?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. But
Everybody says that.
I think John. I just
John,
love like
okay.
yeah, as a gospel, like it's just so good and I really like how I think John has a bit of a poetic tone and
Okay.
creative tone to his writing and I just love how he kind of embodies that like belovedness of God and I
Mhm.
think that that's really challenged and encouraged me
Okay.
and helped me kind of see that relationship with him and Jesus as I read
Wow.
the Gospels.
Yeah.
And then I also love Psalms too. I feel like there's just so
Oh,
much
I knew
imagery
you were gonna say Psalms. I'm like,
that
she's a
like
Psalms girl.
exactly, yeah.
I knew I was waiting for it, honestly. Honestly,
Mhm.
I thought John took me by surprise. I thought you were gonna say Psalms first, but that's awesome. And then number two, what is your favorite book that is not your own, but what is your favorite book that has helped you in some way, whether that's life, business, walking with the Lord, encouragement, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a good one too. Um, I think The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. I
Okay.
I think it's just I've read it multiple times,
Okay.
every so often. I feel like it's one of those that like has helped me reprioritize and slow down in
Okay.
order to hear God more clearly.
Yeah.
I think like the first time that I read it was just it felt very revolutionary of just like wow, like simplicity and following Jesus is
Hmm.
kind of more of the goal than sometimes again as a creative feeling like oh I've got to be outside in the world doing all these things trying to promote myself. And I think
Gotcha.
that's important. Like I think God will elevate us and will give us
Right.
opportunities. But just again, it really spoke to that sort of striving sense.
Mm.
And it really
Yeah.
helped me kind of start to have those conversations with God about what does that look like for me to just not be in a hurry, but
Wow.
actually be intentional about my life and about listening for him and making decisions that are not rushed, but actually like led by his spirit, you know?
That's so good. I know we all need that, especially all of us on this podcast and this community. We're all go-getters and want to do all the things all the time. And so that is such an important reminder that we need to slow down. We need to, go hang out with Jesus for a little bit. We need to go touch some grass. So let's let's chill out for a little bit. So
Oh, totally.
that's so awesome. Well, Hayley, you have been absolutely amazing on this podcast. I am so excited for everybody to hear this episode, for them to go get your books and all the things. So tell us, where can we find you? Give us all the details.
Yeah, so all of my art and my books are on my site, desertsblooming.com.
Okay.
And I actually just released a wilderness workbook as well. So if you like the
Oh, did you
creative,
really? Oh
the
my gosh.
fun
Okay,
creative,
perfect.
yes, there's also something similar for kind of people going through a wilderness experience.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, so those are all on my site. And then my Instagram is Deserts Blooming. I have
Mhm.
everything out of that. And then
Yeah.
Substack also. And will obviously put the links together. But yeah,
Yes.
definitely check out that. There's going to be some exciting new things coming on Substack that
Amazing.
I'm not going to say anything yet, but stay tuned, stay in tune. Yeah.
Stay tuned. Got you. I will have all of that in the show notes as well. And then when she launches that devotional we talked about, I'll make sure that I will I'd be advertising that as well because I know I'm going to be getting a copy. So,
Oh,
so welcome. Well, Hayley, you're welcome back anytime. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening. Send this to a Proverbs 31 creative who needs to hear this episode. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys.
I hope this episode blessed you today. If it did,